and everyone at our channel. So I said I was going to do more movie reviews, and I figured over Hanukkah was the perfect time to I don't know why things always work out this way. Anyhow, I've been wanting to do the Da Vinci Code and Lady in the Water, so we're going to do that today. Now, the family of Christ and the what we would call the larger Holy Family that comprises John the Baptist, Martha Lazarus, and the Lazarus family, all the way back to King David and back to Solomon. It's always been a greater Holy Family. And this next movie is about that family and what if they survived and no one knew. So we're going to do the Da Vinci Code. The book was written by Dan Brown, who I'm a big fan of, and the movie was directed by Ron Howard, who I'm also equally a big fan of ever since Happy Days. Like, I go way back with Ron Howard like that. Don't know either of them, but big fan of their work. So the Da Vinci Code, and it's like the world has forgotten this. At the time when this movie came out, that was all people talked about, to the point where there were History Channel documentaries on the subject, and it seemed like knowledge on the subject was being furthered, and I had never been happier in my life, because I was like, finally they're telling our story. So it's about this girl named Sophie, and I wonder if she was given the name Sophie from Sophia in the Gnostic Gospels. Sophie has this uncle or grandpa that works at the Louvre, and she has become a cryptologist with their detectives, and this guy, this relative of hers, is recently emmed in the Louvre, and they've got to solve what happened, which leads her on a around the world journey and Grail quest to find answers, only to find in the end that she was the answer. So as she unravels this guy's life and has this guy Robert Langdon, who's a symbologist, helping her to solve what happened to her family member, her life story slowly comes out as they are traveling, and next thing you know, they are being chased. People won't leave them alone. People they thought were their friends end up not being their friends, and they kind of find that they are in it together, and it's kind of them against the world. And the reason is because there's an explosive secret behind their family history. And it's the same family history as our alleged family history, in that Sophie is a modern day descendant of the Grail line. So this was kind of the world's first introduction. Like when Holy Blood, Holy Grail came out back in the 80s, it was written by Henry Lincoln, Michael Bajan, and Lee, what's his last name? He's a cool guy. That was kind of when that theory was first introduced to the world, and back then DNA testing wasn't what it is today. It was still just a theory, but the theory is based on actual legends and history, actual documented history in France, that says that a boat with the Holy Family members arrives in southern France shortly after the crucifixion, and in that boat was Mary Magdalene, Martha Lazarus, and Mary Salome, and they showed up in a boat with no oars that people in the village where they arrived said it showed up like it was piloting itself, and they welcomed the Holy Family there, and then churches and basilicas were named after them, and it seemed like they were honored there more than maybe in other parts of the world, because, you know, they had just crucified Jesus. this family had to flee for its safety. And we talked about how in the Gospel of Thomas they might have made reference to Mary Magdalene dressing as a man for part of her escape, and that was because back during this time women were not allowed to travel alone. If you were a woman, that was illegal. We still have a long way to go on women's rights, as long as there's still an indigenous women's pay gap, and as long as women are still the minority in politics, as long as we haven't had a female president, there is still some inequality going on, in my opinion. And one thing I love about this Grail story is, as you learn about Mary Magdalene's life and Sophie's life in this movie, it should teach people more respect for women. I think Jesus, if he was willing to let the women study and dress as men, he obviously didn't have those issues. He may have been a lot more progressive than people realized at the time. So next thing you know, they're having to travel to all these different historical sites to gather clues and piece the story together, as Robert Langdon is explaining a lot of his vast history knowledge that can be helpful. And they talk about how Mary Magdalene may have shown up with a daughter or pregnant, that little girl may have married into the Merovingian lineage. They think her name was Sarah, that the Merovingian lineage may have had this old legend about Clovis's wife being knocked up by a quinotar or a beast from the sea, in order to kind of explain it at the time, if there was a royal marriage of that sort. Some people called Sarah the Egyptian, that she was darker skinned, which kind of spawned the Black Madonna thing over there. She might have been an Egyptian girl that they rescued along their travels and was like an adopted daughter, and she could have been pregnant, but also Martha Lazarus or Mary Salome could have been pregnant or had kids too. So that would be the Grail line from France. And at the end, Sophie comes to learn that this is her special family, and as they travel to all these different sites and she's learning about her family history, like, I remember learning about that stuff too, and having some of those same moments of like, wow, this is a lot of human history that our family has been around for. It's like we helped write history. And I felt like I could really relate to Sophie's character, because I feel like that's me. Except nobody came to rescue me. People left me here. And it seems like the world has changed since the Da Vinci Code came out. If people were so excited about that idea at the time, and this is the first time the world was hearing that the Grail line might still exist, to everybody having lured her across state lines, held her hostage, and tried to get her gone. The fact that my family and friends, after that movie came out, would still think any of what they've done to me is okay is appalling and disgusting. Because once the Holy Family is gone, guys, your God's guides on earth are gone. Humanity's going to be up a creek, because you guys are managing yourselves into the ground with we've got a second presidential impeachment inquiry going on now. Now that's 2. Both might have ties. Growing homeless crisis, natural disasters everywhere, on the brink of another war. Things haven't been this bad since World War II. I don't know how humanity and humans let this happen, but it was obviously by not listening to your guides, because that wasn't stuff I would have been telling people to do. Anyhow, so I loved how Ron Howard put a whole bunch of like clues and stuff in the way he filmed it. Like it's almost like a little treasure hunt of Easter eggs going through that movie. And I love how they go into a lot of the symbolism. When we talk about religious symbolism, this is an area I've studied a lot, actually. And it was important for me for a project I was doing in college once. So I started learning about religious symbolism. And the way that they explain a lot of it in the movie is so great, because this is the first time audiences around the world are learning about these things that our family has been studying for generations, that is a part of our history. And I think the way they filmed it was brilliant. I thought it was so awesome to see all of these different historical places that I will never get to go to. You know, no one helped me on that stuff. But audiences get to learn as Sophie is learning. So, you know, you kind of feel like you can relate. And then when she has that moment at the end where she finds out that she's the Grail, and she meets her family for the first time, it's a pretty profound, impactful moment. And that is after all of the suspense of a cross-world chase and trying to outrun the bad guys and solve a mystery. So it's kind of a whodunit and an action movie and a historical movie all in one. And the way that they talk about Jesus and Mary Magdalene's love story, I mean, that's the one thing I'm sure on. If they were married, they would have had to have been madly in love with each other. That is just the impression that I get, that like this was true love, that this was a woman who was willing to risk her life for her Savior. Even after he was crucified, she risked her life to carry on the ministry over in Europe. You don't do that unless you really love someone. You don't go study Tantra unless you really, really love someone. And we think Jesus may have done that. So, you know, that was something I was hoping to find in my life, be able to get married and have kids. And I wasn't allowed to do that. I was just kept as a usable hostage my whole life, you know, hidden inside the MOB so that they could use me up and throw me out. You know, I haven't been able to finish college, haven't had much of a life. The only time I've had much of a life is when they were using me in the music industry and in the club scene, which really wasn't what I wanted. You know, I was trying to go to college, like, have a life. And people just couldn't stop using me. Even after my coma, people still thought, you know, I suffer 3rd-degree burns in a coma, become visually impaired, have to relearn how to walk all over again. These people still feel it's okay to use me. You know, I get shot at, these people still feel it's okay to use me. I get attacked by a pit bull, these people still feel it's okay to lose me. I wake up with my legs paralyzed, unable to walk one day, these people still think it's okay to use me. I get hit by a car, these people still think it's okay to use me. So having gone through a life like that seems very different than what Sophie went through, but she has a few of her own horror stories growing up in her family too that kind of come out. And her family is estranged also, and there's relationship issues. I mean, no family is ever 100% perfect. Even in Jesus' time, it wasn't. I think he was just very good at uniting people under a common goal where everyone could get along and everyone got fed, you know, and that can really change the way things work out. In our family, it seemed like my mom wanted people to be pissed at each other, be estranged, not have much of relationships, take mom's direction on even whether or not people could come visit me. I'm like, my siblings are freaking adults now. They can get in their car and come over and help me if they want. They don't need mommy's permission. Neither do any of my friends. You are an adult. use your own conscience and decide not to let your friend die. It's really that simple. Anyhow, when I'm gone, my whole line will be gone. My step-siblings do not qualify as Holy Family. They married into the family. They're not biological descendants. And they'll be the ones carrying on the family name. You know, I'm sure they'll go after one of my brothers and my mom after me. I don't think they're going to stop. And they've gone after a few of their own too, so it just seems like, you know, our family somehow in this last generation became a predatory family that preys on its own. And I think that's because my mom, you know, she grew up in Catholic school. I think she grew up with a big grudge against God, and she decided to be bad. And I think my grandpa was trying to stop her. I think he was concerned about what her potential might be when she got her hands on his old closed books. That was the day that he realized there was nothing more he could do, and he just threw up his hands and said, Lois, you're going to destroy the whole world with those books. So I know that he saw something in her that wasn't right, and I think a lot of people did, but the problem is no one spoke up. People didn't feel that the holy line continuing to exist was worth speaking up and saving lives. These people were too busy trying to get their careers off of an MOB family, agreeing to help my mom hold me hostage and use me and torture me and abuse me. When you sign the Holy Grail up for illegal human experimentation, when you sell them to weapons contractors and for scientific testing when they're just a little child, like that's sick. And then when you do it to other people's kids, that's even more sick. And then when you do it to your entire family, that's even more sick. And, you know, seems like someone in my family thought that was all perfectly fine to do. So our family ended up not being like Sophie's family. Sophie was raised by her uncle because her parents had died. That probably would have been a better situation for me. Like things may have turned out a whole lot differently had anyone reported, had anyone done anything, or had I had the chance to grow up somewhere else. But the movie is just spectacularly done, the way they film it. For a lot of people, it's the only time they'll be able to see these historical sites and, you know, get to see the Louvre and stuff like that. That was some of my favorite stuff in the movie. And some of my other favorite stuff in the movie, Tom Hanks is in it. I think they cast everything so well that it made these characters believable. And then you have Sir Lee T-Bean, and he is the most hilarious one of all. And he ends up not being the same kind of person by the end. I don't want to give everything away, but from a Holy Family perspective, I think Ron Howard and Dan Brown did brilliant. Apparently, it is a very dangerous life just to be born into this family. Apparently, everyone will want to get their hands on you. And apparently, the world, you know, still has a hard time accepting what they're trying so hard to kill off. You know, but they did this to Jesus too. Like you know, humans just always want to think they can play God. And nothing bad will happen. And now you guys are looking at World War III. There's natural disasters out there. We've had a pandemic and a famine. You know, the only thing next is your Antichrist, and that's what people chose over having a Holy Family here to help tell them not to do that. And I'm sorry if one person in our family made everybody do the wrong stuff. No one should have listened to her in the first place. Like if you ever get the feeling that somebody is that mentally ill or deranged, that they like hurting people, especially children, you report that. You don't let that person continue. You know, back in Jesus' time, these disciples were willing to put their life on the line. for each other. And that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. But Robert Langdon was willing to put his life on the line for Sophie.